One back at Spa, and the grid is gathering for the Belgian Grand Prix, the last European race of this hugely eventful season.
Let's take a look then at the grid. All Ferrari front row, as I said, all McLaren second row. BMW not really on their game this weekend, and that allows Rosberg to get in front of Heidfeld. Rosberg certainly one of the big heroes of qualifying. There's a pattern emerging, isn't there? Webber, Trulli consistently punching above their weight along with Rosberg. Kovalainen again ahead of Fisichella, who has had to drop to the back of the grid because he changed an engine. David Coulthard there, not entirely happy with the balance of his Red Bull in qualifying. Jenson Button up to 12th on the grid, so Honda pointing in the right direction. Robert Kubica, you can see there, he actually qualified 5th originally, but had to move back on the grid to 14th for an engine change. And there you can see the back part of the grid. Rubens Barrichello starting his 250th Grand Prix today. And Martin, he's never gone a season without scoring a World Championship point. He's in serious danger of doing that this year. It's been a long career for Barrichello, but it tells you a lot about Honda's year. And certainly been the winner many times, although his getaway not always the best. His positioning of the car into the first corner, definitely a first corner where you can make up a lot of places. It's a fairly short run into a very tight hairpin. That decision in Paris handing virtually the Constructors' Championship to Ferrari and putting McLaren right at the bottom of the pile. And as we were hearing earlier on from Louise, that's going to be quite something for them next year. Instead of having 4, 5 or 6 garages, as that seniority gives you, then they'll be at the other end getting 2 or 3 maximum. They've got a lot of equipment they won't be able to bring, and also you get fewer VIP guest passes for your sponsors into the paddock and a whole bunch of other things as well. So
smoking on the grid as well is the left front brake of Master's Ferrari.
We're all ready to go then. 44 laps of the Belgian Grand Prix. Great to be back at Spa. The race is go. Raikkonen on the left, Massa on the right. Hamilton is chopped out by Alonso very wide as he go into the last source out. Alonso didn't want anything from Hamilton there. Hamilton's pushed right off the grass. He's coming back on again, but Alonso, is he going to get side by side with him? Hamilton's going to keep his foot down here. Alonso will have to lift. Who's going to lift of the 2 McLaren drivers? Neither of them do. Hamilton eventually has to, as Alonso goes through with Rosberg right behind him. That was pretty crude stuff between the 2 McLaren guys at the start line. Raikkonen leads though, looking in his mirrors to see where Massa is.
Hard but fair though, having no problems with that as they then fall into line. Alonso's entitled to take up his racing line, and then Hamilton just gained so much traction out there on the runoff apron. Coulthard in between the 2 Toyotas. He's 10th at the moment, having started 11th, but it's Raikkonen, Massa, Alonso, Hamilton.
Yeah, Raikkonen leads. It's a Ferrari 1-2 at Spa at the moment. Alonso 3rd, 4th Hamilton, 5th Rosberg, 6th is Heikki Kovalainen. Great start by him. Mark Webber is 7th, 8th, down to 8th is Heidfeld, who was about a metre in front of his start block on the line. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Ralf Schumacher is 9th, David Coulthard is 10th, Jarno Trulli behind him in 11th spot. We're riding on board with the reigning world champion, trying to live with the Ferraris in this opening stage.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Heidfeld gets a penalty for that, because I think it's relative movement they monitor rather than actual position, but we'll wait to find out.
It's been a great start for the Spiker of Adrian Sutil. He's up to 16th. That's a revised car. But Spiker, of course, brought out for the first time in Monza as Webber looks to get past Kovalainen. The extra weight in that Renault is going to slow Webber down. He's planning to come in about 7 laps earlier than Kovalainen. They'll then do probably quite a long middle stint in this race and then jump onto the soft tyre for a short final stint. Riding on board with the BMW.
Yes, and if you're doing one stop, you want to be on the harder, more durable tyre anyway, because the track rubbers in, comes back to you as Kovalainen gets way wide into the entrance of bus stop, and he manages to hold up Webber. You're always going to be on the throttle, a car length in front of the driver behind, of course, just physically, and then the concertina effect of that is tremendous, given the sheer acceleration these Formula 1 cars have. Alex Wurz continuing his disappointing weekend. Where was he? He's shown down in 21st now.
Webber tucks himself up once again behind Kovalainen. They're both using the same Renault engine here, but Webber's got a good toe. He goes to the outside line knowing that Kovalainen will go defensive. And it's Renault against Renault in the horsepower stakes. He's taken the line through, and it's a beautiful pass by Mark Webber. It's important.
Beautifully done by Webber, because he edged Kovalainen onto the dirtier, bumpier side of the track there. And Kovalainen knew he was going to have to lift early if he had any prayer of making the apex. Come on, that is a bit OTT for teammates, but if you're head-to-head as racing drivers, I think it's hard but fair, as I said earlier. Hamilton then will barge straight out to the runoff area on the outside. We're going to see it from Hamilton's car now. And Alonso so close. Even Alonso was on the AstroTurf there. Now Hamilton is on the inside line effectively for the turn in. He's side by side. Look at that at 190 miles an hour. Incredible bravery. And then ultimately common sense for Hamilton.
Lap 7 of the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. We're in the southern part of Belgium in the Ardennes Forest and one of the world's finest racetracks. Kimi Räikkönen, at the moment, who's won here twice, is pulling away at the front. He started in pole position alongside his teammate Felipe Massa. He is now 2.5 seconds ahead of him. Alonso, after some very hard but fair with teammate Hamilton off the start line, is third. Hamilton is fourth. As Vettel still working on that car in the pit lane. Räikkönen leading then Massa by almost 3 seconds now. Alonso third, Hamilton fourth. And Hamilton nearly 10 seconds behind the race leader. Let's look at what happened with Kubica and Kovalainen.
Well, Kubica has been much later on the brakes, but not been able to do anything with it. That's a Hamilton-esque overtaking manoeuvre there. Came in very, very deep. Luckily, Kovalainen saw him coming, and he just carried him wide. We're doing a bit of filming on the sort of hanging out to dry and all sorts of aspects of slipstreaming. Looking at the amazing Adrian Sutil for Spiker out there in P12. He's passed truly Button and Liuzzi during this Grand Prix. He's hanging on to the tail of Coulthard's presumably long first stopping Red Bull, but he's right in there. I mean, he had a good race here in F3 with his teammate, his then teammate Lewis Hamilton. Had an amazing scrap which Hamilton eventually won, but Sutil is good around here, and certainly a young driver that's getting mentioned as outperforming his car.
Yeah, he's made quite a lot of mistakes this year as Adrian Sutil. He's gone off, and that has frustrated his Spiker team management, but he's also shown some flashes of great speed, particularly in the wet free practice on the Saturday morning in Monte Carlo, where he actually was top of the timesheets on that occasion. And it's certainly a driver that's being talked about as a future star. And it just shows you that if you've got the car under you and you've got the right car working, then you can do a lot in Formula One. So he's gone from the back up to 12th place at the moment, and still a lot of racing to go. Now there's a great scrap going on in the midfield between Rosberg, Webber, Heidfeld, Kubica, Kovalainen. Of those guys, only Kovalainen, we believe, is stopping once. So he is challenging Rosberg today and Webber for best of the rest behind the Ferraris and the McLarens, and there's a lot can happen in that battle over the course of the next 31 laps. Well, if either of the Ferraris have got a problem, they're not showing it at the moment. They're very quick, lapping in the low to mid 1 minute 48. Lewis Hamilton is in the low 1:49s.
Räikkönen is in that zone, that lovely zone that you sometimes experience. So obviously that's why it's a 44-lap race, to get it just over the 300 kilometres, approaching 200 miles. A high-speed race it is too.
So Rosberg rejoins 9th, Webber 10th, on board with Sutil, having a go at David Coulthard in the Red Bull. Coulthard has to go defensive. He's making himself a candidate for driver of the day here, Adrian Sutil. Certainly a very eye-catching performance.
He's got such straight line speed now, a lot of that, and it's the Räikkönen first to blink of the Grandees, and Alonso is about to come directly in behind him. Alonso is in the pits indeed, so Massa takes the lead, hard tyres go on.
So Hamilton was 3 seconds behind Alonso before Alonso came into the pits. He's got to try and make up that time with the laps of extra fuel that he's got. Depends on how many he's got and how possible that will be. Alonso, a lot of smoke coming out of his brake dose. It's a very long middle stint for McLaren. Certainly on Alonso's car. And back out he goes onto the racetrack. Heidfeld has gone through. Alonso rejoins then in the gap between Heidfeld and Rosberg. So he re-emerges in 5th place. And because you see it's an 18-lap middle stint according to the computer for Fernando Alonso. So that's one of the advantages for the top teams, Martin, this year, isn't it? They've had such a big performance gap to the other teams. As these great gaps open up, and when they make their pit stop, they just slot straight back into it, and they can then run in clear air and don't lose too many places.
Yeah, especially on such a long circuit as this. It really is.
The car didn't follow what I was asking for. So in fact it didn't turn, and we thought in the beginning it could be something related to the tires, but after changing them and going out of the box, which is the right corner again, I could feel that it didn't help. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame, because I mean the race was only 5 laps out, but we seem to have a quite good race pace.
Thanks.
So the Ferrari of Felipe Massa and the McLaren of Lewis Hamilton both coming into the pits. Hamilton stationary for quite a long time. Massa taking on an extra 16 laps. Hamilton did not have too many extra laps then in comparison with Alonso, so he didn't have great pace in qualifying yesterday, we now learn, and we've seen already in this race he's not got great pace in the opening stint. Let's see if he likes the second set of tyres a little bit more. It's a very long middle stint. Yeah, this is his out lap, of course, from the pit stop. 2 minutes 10, that last lap. Quite a bit slower than Felipe Massa's. He put in a little bit more fuel, but he's still almost 2 seconds slower on the out lap than Felipe Massa, who is now just under 5 seconds behind Raikkonen, so he's slightly quicker through the pit stop sequence than his teammate. But Raikkonen looking serene at the front. 27 years of age now, Kimi Raikkonen. He's been knocking on the door of World Championships over the years. Moving to Ferrari, he thought would bring him that much long-for title, and it's not really gone right. He's had 2 non-finishes this season. He's had, as I mentioned before, erratic form, but when he is on it, he is really on it.
Yeah, well, that's not really... Kovalainen's going to have to get on with it now. That's not really working out too well, is it, to be racing the BMWs, because they've both got to stop one more time, and it's Kovalainen who's got the... going to have to run the longer distance on the tyres, so he's not going to be threatening Heidfeld too much later on in the Grand Prix unless there's any kind of other problem. That bump down there into Rivage is definitely increasing year by year. That's where we saw Alonso spinning in qualifying, and you can see the drivers really struggling over that. And this is then must be Kubica on Coulthard. Coulthard 1 stopping, Kubica 2 stopping after his first pit stop.
With fraction more, so there is a possibility that things may change a little bit later between those 2 in the race. Heikki Kovalainen is 5th at the moment for Renault, having yet to make his first pit stop. He is on a different strategy from the rest of the front runners. He's racing against Heidfeld, Rosberg and Webber for best of the rest behind the Ferraris and the McLarens. Battle between those 4 drivers here today as we look at Wirtz and Trulli battling earlier on in the race over 16th and 17th places.
Curiously, Alex Wirtz there making the pass and then immediately pitting. That was for 16, and then immediately deciding, so normally you wouldn't want to take that kind of risk when you're on an in-lap anyway, but hey-ho, that's what he did.
Let's enjoy this run through Eau Rouge with the world champion. Just one of the 2 over 20-minute bursts of constant full throttle here at Spa that I was mentioning earlier on, as Heikki Kovalainen, the sole remaining Renault in the field. Giancarlo Fisichella has retired. Onto the soft tyres goes Kovalainen. He's fueled to the finish, and we'll see what he can do this afternoon. He's certainly beginning to really look the part now as a Grand Prix driver, and with all that's going on at McLaren, the feeling between the 2 drivers here, we come back out again. It'll be interesting to see what happens at Renault if Alonso does move on. He'll go back to Renault, and which of the 2 drivers they'll keep. Back out he comes then, behind Coulthard, behind Kubica.
And who was it then? Davidson, who did a bit of the rallycross, and Hamilton focusing on his apexes. That service road there, quite handy for getting back onto the racetrack. The final part of that replay then, simply just locking up too deep into Lecombe. Ted has some news on another Brit.
Yeah, just what's going on with David Coulthard. That Rubens Barrichello going off in the Honda.
As Alonso's already into Lecombe and past Coulthard then out of the race.
Yeah, just to clear that up, he's come out behind Alonso, and Hamilton is behind Raikkonen, so it's Massa leading, Alonso 2nd, Raikkonen 3rd and Hamilton 4th.
Okay, David Coulthard then looks like he's retired with some technical problems. Indeed he has. Try and second guess what that might be. He's already got his pit lane limiter up because his fuel flat is up, so which is unusual to see out on the racetrack. And this is Sato then shaping up on Jenson Button. And how is this going to work out? He's going to go straight from the outside and take the position. That is 13th then for Takuma Sato.
Felipe Massa, who briefly led then after Raikkonen's pit stop, but he's well adrift of his teammate today. Brake dust coming off there. There's only 3 big stops around here at Spa-Francorchamps. It's not a heavy braking circuit. Much more emphasis on aerodynamic efficiency. It's about having lots of downforce with as little as possible drag on straights.
So Alonso leads from Hamilton at the moment after the 2 stops of the Ferraris, the final stops scheduled anyway. Can Massa do anything about Raikkonen's lead? Can't see how he's going to. Raikkonen just looks like he's about 8/10 out there. 8/10 of his potential capacity.
Goes through. He's going to do at least one more lap. Good stop for McLaren. Fueled to the finish. He had a 4.8-second lead over Lewis Hamilton before he made that stop. Hamilton just doesn't seem to have the pace in the car today. A little bit like Silverstone, where he's 4th out of the top 4. There's Heidfeld, who is effectively a pit stop behind him. Well, we saw David Coulthard retiring a few minutes ago. Let's see if Louise Goodman can tell us why.
Yeah, and I can confirm what I think Martin already suspects. It's a hydraulics failure, and it's not the first time I've said that this season. So hydraulics failure for Coulthard. It's led to his power steering cutting out, and he's had to park the car. Try and grab a word with him when he gets back, but it's going to be a bit of a walk for him.
Well, that must be a bit galling. They've got some good people in the hydraulics department at Red Bull, but they do seem to have a few problems with that car. As Kubica pits from 6th.
You can almost see the white lines on the white stripes on his front tyres there. Alonso then heading towards 3rd place at the moment. It's not been a classic this afternoon, a bit of a sort of a lacklustre 1-all draw, hasn't it, at the moment? But let's see if they can spin us a double 6 before the end of the race.
Well, currently running 2nd, Lewis Hamilton, the only one of the front runners yet to make a pit stop. And I suppose he'll console himself with the fact that the difference between 3rd place and 4th place is, in points terms, is only 1 point. So if Alonso finishes 3rd and he finishes 4th, and Alonso will only take 1 point. The extra stop as Alonso sides past the Honda of Jenson Button in 12th place. Well, if it finishes like this, Hamilton will have 97 points, Alonso 95. He'll be 2 behind him with 3 races to go. Raikkonen will move to 84 points, which is 13 behind Hamilton, and Massa will have 77 and will be pretty much out of it. So a few more results like this will bring Raikkonen closer, but they do need a McLaren non-finish. It has been an extraordinary season from that point of view. McLaren, who had unreliable cars, as we look at Liuzzi here, battling with that Jenson Button.
I love the way Liuzzi at 170 miles an hour looked over. He's like, where's he going? And where was he going? And who was it?
Well, he was
just behind Button, wasn't he? 1.6.
Yeah, he was 1.5 seconds behind Button, who seems to be travelling quite slowly. And I think it must have been poor old Jenson Button then. Yeah, that's not a full throttle Honda. McLaren ready for Hamilton. A very, very short final stint for him. Here's Kubica attacking Kovalainen. This is for points, the final points playing position, and tries to wrong foot him, but Kovalainen holds the steady middle ground. Lewis Hamilton pits from 3rd. Ted Kravitz.
James, that he just hasn't been quick enough. He's been consistently a couple of tenths slower than Fernando Alonso. And that's what the big fight that will undoubtedly be the talking point of this race between them on the first race. But just looking what's going on next door at Honda, it's terminal for Jenson Button. They've come out, they've cleared a space in the garage. They're about to retire Jenson Button in the Honda. Bad day for him.
The closing stages of the Belgian Grand Prix from Spa-Francorchamps on itvf1.com, the website. And Don't forget to check out the GP2 race next weekend. Karen Chandhok, the Indian driver, winning this morning in the sprint race, and that's the first major win at that level by an Indian driver, and he couldn't have timed it better with an Indian multimillionaire buying the Spiker team. How long before we see Karen Chandhok in Formula One, I wonder? Well, it's been all about Ferrari here this afternoon. They are going to clinch their 15th Constructors' Championship as a result of this 1-2 finish here at Spa-Francorchamps. And Kimi Raikkonen, who was a two-time winner going into this race, becomes a three-time winner of the Belgian Grand Prix, the ultimate driver's circuit. He's given the ultimate performance yesterday and today. It's victory for Kimi Raikkonen ahead of Felipe Massa, and there is no answer to that from McLaren. They are a distant third and fourth. Alonso takes a vital point out of Hamilton's championship lead by finishing third. Lewis Hamilton will come in fourth place, with Heidfeld fifth, Rosberg sixth, Webber seventh, and Kovalainen in eighth place. And it's donuts time for Kimi Raikkonen.
Excellent. That's what you want to see. He's not allowed to do it, but we love it.
Do you think he'll end up in a courtroom?
I suspect not. But with this such a long circuit and this new pit lane, they turn him in and the far end. That'll feel really weird for a driver. The one thing you don't do is ever go the wrong way down a racetrack. That'll feel strange.
Of the season. They are the Constructors' Champions of 2007. On we go then to Fuji, a brand new circuit in Japan in 2 weeks' time. Can Lewis Hamilton get some momentum back into his title challenge there?
It has been Kimi Raikkonen's day here in Spa. He takes his third victory on this circuit in the Belgian Grand Prix and does it in truly dominant fashion. Ferrari hit McLaren hard, just as they did in Paris on Thursday, but this was far more impressive, and we'll get all the analysis and reaction in a few minutes' time.
Perfect day for you. You were worried before the race, perhaps a little bit about your neck and also about a vibration or feeling at the rear of the car in qualifying, but it looked to be perfect.
Yeah, I think so. Not really any issues during the race. Everything went well, and was a nice race.
By a single point. Hamilton now leading by just 2, and Kimi Raikkonen 13 points off Hamilton's lead. Felipe Massa in fourth.